speaking of calamities, speaking of tragedies that befall people, there's nothing quite like taking an ibrah, taking a moral from a story. So, a great example to cite here, in line with tawakkul, in line with calamities, in line with disasters, and something I've shared often before, and I always think is a great story to share, is Rahman ibn Muawiyah Aldakhil. People, if you think calamities, have afflicted you in your life, and they may have, and they, they don't discriminate. However, here, check this out. Imagine being royalty. Here is an individual, Rahman ibn Muawiyah. Who is he, by the way? He is a prince. We're talking about a century after the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's a prince from the many princes of Bani Umayyah, the Umayyad dynasty, which is in its decline. And he's living life. He's chilling. He's got it all. Wealth, dunya, women. He's got it all. Family, he's one of many princes living in Damascus. What happens all of a sudden is he comes out one day and whoa, he sees these black flags. ISIS? Perhaps not too different, actually, at that point. It was Bani al-Abbas, the Abbasids. The Abbasids had done a coup, military coup. They're taken over, and what they were doing was they were hunting out, seeking out and hunting every Umayyad, every person, royal elite linked to Bani Umayyah, and they were laying him or her, not so much her, but more so him, to death. They were wiping out the entire patrilineal lineage. It was all going down. Any person that was a part of the royal family was going to be exterminated. And who is he? So those of you that know a bit about history, his name is Rahman ibn Muawiyah ibn Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. So his granddad Hisham is one of the major last caliphs of Bani Umayyah, and his dad wasn't a caliph, and he's the grandson, and he's just basically living life. So he sees this, oh my God, what's going on? Him and his brother, and they're like, let's get out of here. And he has a baby. He's actually, when he sees this, his baby was crying, and he decides to walk. Let's pacify the baby. So he's taking the baby out, walking, pacifying the child, and he sees these people coming, these army soldiers of the Abbasid soldiers hunting out Umayyads. He sees the flags, he runs in, he hides, he gives the child to the mother, he grabs anything he can get hold of. Him and his brother, he has a younger brother, they are gone. Out of there. They go running. People are being massacred. There was a bloodbath that was taking place. It is some of the soldiers see him and they say, oh, that's one of the princes. Catch him. So they are on their chase. These guys are running. They reach the Euphrates, throw themselves in. Chalo, Arya par. There's death and there's death. So they throw themselves in. And right, that's my my private jets. Right, so the soldiers, and check this out, the soldiers are like, damn, because they're too scared. The current is too powerful. He's a good swimmer. He makes it across. His younger brother, early teens, he's struggling a bit in the river, in the Euphrates. So the soldiers cut him a deal. They say, you know what? come back, we'll relax, relájate, cálmate, huh? Oh, do you think we're gonna hurt you? This is a game, man. We're playing the game. So they say to him, you know what, come back, we're not going to kill you, we're just going to, we give you our word. Yellow yar, have the word, man. In the beginning there was the word, and here's my word. He's given it. So his brother, whose name was Walid, he thinks, you know what, I'm going to come back. And he tells his bro, no, don't. But he goes back. As soon as he gets out of the river, in front of him, whilst he's on the other side of the bank, the river bank, they hold his younger brother, who is probably about 13, and they slit his throat. Right in front of him. And this is his last, this is what he gets to experience. He runs. He runs as fast as his legs can carry him. He says that if I could, I would have taken flight. Ye bhi ho sakta tha. Aviation, huh? So he runs and he just travels, and there's all these journeys of him trying to get out of there. He heads down south. He's just non-stop traveling. In his mind, he thinks, where do I go? So because he's trying to keep a low profile, obviously Umayyad prince, huge price on his head. So he makes his way down towards the Arabian Peninsula, over into Egypt, and then he finds more hostile territory. And he had some relatives deep down in Libya, further down in Africa. So he heads over to there because he was partially Berber. His mum's side were Berber. So he heads there and he seeks sanctuary. So he's kind of hiding. He's in hiding there. And he just stays there. Now think about this. He's lost everything overnight. He lost royalty, luxury, family, child, wife, brother. He lost money, legacy. Everything has gone. The whole kingdom has gone. So he's living almost an impoverished life with certain Berbers in Libya. Now, he keeps himself to himself. He starts trying to, but then check this out. You see, you have the tawakkul, but then you have a strategy. So he thinks after a while, when he collects his senses, you know what? I wonder if there's any other Bani Umayyah alive or sympathizers. So he starts writing letters to certain people. Obviously, he didn't have social media, man. Couldn't just do a live stream. So, so he starts writing out to different people, trying to test the waters, see what's going on. And time goes by. And he realizes he has some sympathizers. He has sympathizers in Yemen. He has sympathizers in some in the Arabian Peninsula, some in Egypt, but not many. And he's thinking, yeah, it's been years now. I've been living in Libya like a pauper. What do I do? Shall I go to Egypt? Shall I go to Arabian Peninsula? Shall I go? And then he's like, too dangerous. And he's got this servant with him. And the servant's kind of advising, a very wise person, telling him, look, don't be silly, man. So eventually what happens, and I can't go into the full detail, but there was a power vacuum taking place in Andalus, Muslim Spain. The Bani Umayyah had lost their control before the massacres, a year before, and there was just a void. There was a power struggle. Random people were trying to take over. Somebody says to him, why don't you head over to Al-Andalus? And he says, whoa, Andalus? Yeah, what this one, man? And so they say to him, look, there is a struggle due to certain races, discriminatory and racist factors in Al-Andalus. The Arabs and the Berbers were at odds with each other. So because you have Berber ties and you are Bani Umayyah, The legacy. So what if you write to them and ask them, would they support you? So he starts this strategy and he starts writing and he starts getting some positive feedback. And then he thinks, okay, this is, people are saying, yeah, come over, we'll support you. So he sends his servant to kind of like test the waters, everything's cool. And then he goes on his own, single-handed, nothing, no, no cavalry, nothing, no backup, just on his own, him and his assistant. That's it. What follows is he lands at this place called Munyakar. Actually, I may have a I'll try and bring up here. Actually, I may have a So this is Al Munyakar, which is in South Spain, not too far from Malaga, and that's actually a statue of him because this is where he lands. And when he gets there, he's very intelligent, incredibly astute. He connects, he's very courteous, he's very charming, has an incredibly charming personality. And as you can imagine, there's an ensuing battle that takes place, and he is actually successful. His little group of people, they are successful, triumphant in that battle, and he shows clemency as well. Now, this is interesting. You see, he has a strategy, he has character, because that is important. And there's a point when he overcomes the other people that some of the people with him want to massacre them. And he says, no, don't. He says, you should always show clemency, kindness, and compassion. And he says that it will come back to help us on a rainy day. And it does in the future. But here he is, and he goes on to set up, he's known as Aldakhil because he enters Al-Andalus again. And he establishes, sets into motion an entire empire that will change the course of not only Islamic but human history. The civilization that he sets into motion by setting up this empire. Bani Umayyah in Al-Andalus were one of the most opulent and flourishing kingdoms on earth that centuries down the line, a few centuries, his own offspring, his great-great-great-great-grandson, will go on to declare himself the caliph of the entire Muslim world, Abdul Rahman III. Nasir. And in his time, Europe was beholden to his grace, and he was very gracious. And it is a time of immense prosperity for Muslim Spain. Now, hold that thought. Go back to where I was telling you in the beginning how this starts. These Abbasids who have come in, and Abbasids later on go on to become, they have a huge legacy as well, but in the early days they were very brutal as well. Like many people, it's always the brutality first. So in the early days they were very just massacring people and killing people, and they made certain attempts to have Abdul Rahman Aldakhil assassinated in Muslim Spain, but it was unsuccessful. And on this one occasion, you've all heard of Abu Ja'far al-Mansur. He is the great caliph who was the contemporary of Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik and all these, this one who punished Abu Hanifa, put him in prison and arguably killed him, or at least contributed to the death of Imam Abu Hanifa. But he is infamously well known, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur. Once Abu Ja'far al-Mansur is sitting, chilling in his palace, and he randomly says, I got one for you. I got a question. Who is the Falcon of Quraysh? The Falcon, man, the Falcon. So they say, obviously, up. Sycophants, isn't it? And he says, no, don't be silly, man. He says, seriously, who is the falcon? So they say, so they start guessing all these people, beginning from the great Khulafa, Abu Bakr, radiallahu an, right down, all of them. He says, no. He says, they're great, but no. Say, who, ya? Who, man? He says, Rahman ibn Muawiyah. And they said, why Rahman ibn Muawiyah? He says, this man, kharaja bi nafsihi, that he left here on his own. Mustashiban li ra'yihi. All he had was his own kind of opinion, his belief. That's all he had. And he left. He said, Ya'burul qafar. He had to cross a desert. Yarkabul bahr. He had to ride the sea. Hatta yadkhula baladan a'jamiyan. He entered a non-Arab foreign land. Non-Arabic speaking. Entered a land like that, a different continent. He says, Fajannad al-ajnad. He says he amassed an army. Not just any army. At his death, he stood with an army of 100,000 strong. And he entered single-handedly. He says, Jannad al-ajnad. He amassed an army. وَمَصَّرَ الْأَمْصَارِ. He set up, and he says he created cities. وَأَقَامَ مُلْكًا بَعْدَ انْقِطَاعِ. He said he set into motion again an empire that had long deceased. Bani Umayyah, they had deceased in the east. Abbasids had killed them. He set that into motion again, which was yet to last for at least 2 to 3 centuries to come, and be one of the most powerful kingdoms on earth in its time. And he says, فَقَط only لِحُسْنِ تَدْبِيرِ, because of his strategizing, وَشِدَّةَ عَزْمِ, and his sheer determination, his reliance. He was a person that when you think of it, he was on the brink of death. A dosa, somebody who he didn't have any talents in Damascus. He was just one of many royal spoiled brats that was just living life lavishly, just like a child man, basically, man-child. But when he was put under testing times, he rose. He had tawakkul. He had reliance. He went on to shape the course of Islamic history to come. Allah. There are so many examples that we have in our history where when you see what these people, the inspiration really, it rocks your world. Like you think, wow, somebody so close to an NDE, near-death experience, going on to become a major figure that sets an empire, recreates an entire empire, not just any, one of the most powerful to come on earth for centuries. And that is, وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. You see, فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whosoever relies on God, God is sufficient for them. So that is something, people, that we can all take lessons from. And obviously there's many other stories in there I had to leave out. There's always, with royalty and all these things, there was always betrayal and these stories, huh? What's that? He says, मैं साजिशों में घेरा एक यतीम शहजादा, कोई छुपा हुआ खंजर मेरी तलाश में. He says, I am an orphan prince surrounded by conspiracies. There is a hidden dagger somewhere seeking me out. Allahu Akbar, people.